Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Spear, and you're watching or listening to the HorrorFam.com podcast. And my guest today is Adam Page. He's a writer who got his start in the horror writing field on HorrorFam.com last August in 2024. And since then, he's been featured on Movie Marker and Films East and is continuing his writing journey talking about horror-themed things such as horror books and horror movies. And can't wait for you to meet him. And he's also our first guest not from the USA. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Lauren. It's great to finally meet you. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for being on. And it's great to finally meet you in person as well. I mentioned the other day that I didn't know really what you looked like because your author bio photo is about this big.
Didn't realize it was so small until you said that. I think, I'm going to have to change that. Years out of date. I was much younger. Yeah.
I've run into that a few times myself in my writing career where it's like, oh, I that is me when I was like 19. Well, how did you get into horror? Oh.
With me, it was from books. Where I lived at the time, we had this big cupboard. It was filled with books. A lot of them were my own, a lot were my dad's. And I was just digging through it one day, just looking for something, and I pulled out a copy of Carrie. And I think it was the novelization because I remember it had Sissy Spacek on the cover with the blood coming down her face. And I thought, what's this? And I read the blurb on the back of it. I was like, and I actually asked my dad, I said, can I read this? And he looked at it for a second or two and went, yeah, sure. So that was it. That was the first time I'd read anything or even really seen anything to do with horror. And I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. I think I read it twice because it's only a short book. I read it twice over a few days. And ever since then, it's been horror books, movies, TV shows all the way. I love it. So then a friend of mine in primary school, I guess I would have been about 10. Maybe, no, I would have been younger than that. Would have been about 8. His dad had so many of the old horror films on VHS. So I would go around and we would watch them. And I don't know, we had the Video Nasty thing here. A lot of horror films were banned. And he had them. I know we were way too young to watch these. But we watched a lot of times. I think of maybe because we were that young, you laughed at them. I remember watching The Burning. Who the director's name escapes me, but it's Cropsey. He attacks all the teams, but he has a garden shears, and there's a really famous scene where he attacks them on the post, and one of the girls scream, "Put your hand up," and then the fingers come off. I just thought that was hilarious. But then I remember watching The Exorcist. He had it before it was banned because I remember it was rated X, and it's a big black X on the cover, and we watched it. He thought it was really boring, but I thought it was obviously never seen anything like it. But I remember that was a big moment watching that because I vaguely remember hearing like this film is evil and it's horrific. I loved it. Thought it was a perfect film. So I did, and been into it ever since.
And you actually wrote about the original novel as part of your very first article on HorrorFam.com.
Yes,
And
that's right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, you said that was one of the 7 books that every horror fan should read.
Yeah, because it's so similar to the film. William Peter Blatty also wrote the screenplay, so I think that's fair enough. But the book itself, there's a sense of dread the whole way through it. It's a very slow burner. It doesn't. I mean, it's a long time before demonic possession is even talked about. The whole time it's more, is it a psychological problem? Is it a physical problem? What is it? And by the time we get around to it's demonic possession, you are totally hooked. You buy it completely because you've seen what everything is Regan was going through and is doing. And it does stay with you. There's some horror books you could read and you forget about them as soon as you set them down. Things like that ones stay with you.
Were there any horror novels that you read that had an adaptation that you were like, this is completely not how it was?
Well, do you know, I think the most famous one would be The Lawnmower Man by Stephen King. It was real famous. I remember watching. I'd read this short story first, and then I heard they made a film of it, and then I put it on, and after about 20 minutes, I turned it off and said, "What is this?" But I think sometimes the best way to do it is to maybe watch a film first and then read the book, because in my opinion, the book is usually better, but it's not always the case.
So you would recommend seeing the film first and then reading the book to get more
Well,
context?
I think so. Yes, for me, that's anytime that's happened to me, I've seemed to have gotten more out of it that way. Because a lot of time, if I watch a film and then I'll maybe read the book, I would then go back and watch the film again, because then you have a bit more of it in your head, a bit more context, a bit more. Okay, I see what he was going for here. I see what he's trying to do, or what he's maybe thinking.
That's interesting because usually people are like, read the book and then see the movie, but then they usually end up disappointed.
Yes, that's
So doing
it's,
it your
it's
way.
worked for me. It's worked out. That's it. It's worked out for me. I can't say it would help with everybody, but I liked it.
Yeah, but that's actually I'm like, why haven't I thought of that? Because it's like if you watch the film and then read the book, you're not going to be disappointed in the film. You can just take it for what it is. So that's clever. But you mentioned Stephen King, and I know that you're a huge fan of Stephen King,
Yeah.
and you've written about his works. There was one of your articles on Stephen King up in June 27th, and you've got another one coming up. So, how did you get into Stephen King, and why is he so important to you?
Well, it would be from Carrie, and then after that, he has a list of books in the front. So I started digging out. Do we have anything else here? I tried to read Salem's Lot next, but it was just such a slow read. I couldn't get into it. It took me a long time to read that one. But I think what for me sets him apart more than other horror writers is the characters he creates. He creates people you really care about, and then he puts them into a frightening situation. For example, the scariest book I think he's written is Pet Sematary, and it's a very slow read. It's a long time before Gage Creed is run down in the road. It's a long time before we even hear about what the Pet Cemetery is. Um, it's maybe 2/3 of the way through before he is killed and then buried. But by that point, you've gone through this family, the highs and lows. Lucy's relationship with Judd, this father figure. You are really invested, and then Stephen King comes along and runs the toddler down in the street.
Yeah. I
It's,
imagine that would also hit differently reading that, as a young man, and then again now that you're an older father yourself.
it does a little, but I remember reading it the first time, and I might have been 13 or 14, but I remember reading it then and thinking how he described this child being hit by a lorry, the funeral, and then the digging it up as well. I remember being so shocked by it then, because it wasn't like any of his books I'd read before, even something like The Shining, it had horrific imagery in it, but you knew that was a supernatural thing. You knew there were ghosts in the Overlook chasing Jack to corrupt him. This was about a father digging his son up, and I found that really hard to deal with the first time I read it. Even now, and yeah, it does hit harder as a father, but it's still a horrific book to read.
Yeah. And, I guess I should mention we're the same age, but, you're a parent and I'm not, and I'm in the USA and you're in, uh, the UK, and we briefly discussed before the show maybe talking about, some of the differences that we each had, like, growing up, like, um, I don't think I'll probably need to talk much about that since you know, it's been talked about on other episodes, but as our first UK guest, what was it like, growing up liking horror in the UK? You mentioned the video nasty bans, and what was the general attitude, and has it changed?
It has changed. Whenever I was growing up, horror was on TV a lot, and I don't know if it's the same in the USA, but here, if they would put a film on, a lot of times they would edit for language, violence, things like that. But whenever I was younger, there was still some of that, but it wasn't as much as it is now. It seems to have become a bit more sanitized almost now. I know it's not a horror movie, but I remember watching RoboCop, and I was 12, I think, and it's brutally violent, but it was on TV, basically uncut. Now, I remember it was on TV here a few years ago, and we watched it, and it was, if the film's 2 hours, they had cut it down to maybe an hour and a half. So much of it was edited out. I thought it was unwatchable. There's horror, I think it's sanitized is probably the better way I think of describing it now. When's the last time we saw a proper scary horror film with lots of blood, with gore, body horror almost? I haven't seen that in a very long time. But growing up with it, it didn't seem to be a problem. If I couldn't get a horror novel at home, I would go around to my local library and get it. Now and then, it was it. Oh yeah. I went to rent it from the library, and the librarian rang my dad and asked, because by this point I'd been going there for years. By this point, they knew me. Even then they said, "Well, is it all right? Can he take this?" So, yep, that's okay. You can fill out. Okay, that'll hit. So it was very much like a normal part of life. If you like horror, you like horror. You have some our friends like action movies. Half of them like horror. It wasn't a taboo subject or anything. It was just part of your normal everyday life.
So, it was sort of normal when you were younger, and then it became more stigmatized where,
Yes.
here, for my childhood, it was like, "Oh, that's weird, you're strange, you're weird. You you like horror, and horror is scary, and therefore you are scary." But, and then now it's sort of more accepted and
Mm.
people are more fine with it. I think that's fascinating.
It does seem to have. It's yeah, completely the opposite here. Now it is a case of, if you say to somebody that you enjoy horror, there's a look that comes across their face. It's sort of, oh, you like that? Oh, I wouldn't have thought that. Why? Genuinely, and it is that. I think it is that reason. They think if you like horror, there's something wrong with you. I'm studying English literature at the minute, and I have some of the classics to read, but then also yeah, I can sit and read Stephen King or Dean Koontz, Peter Straub, and you can see people, why are you reading that? As if they have a feeling that it's beneath them almost. Oh, horror's for scary people, for strange people. I just thought, well, if it is, then sign me up, because they're some of the nicest people I've ever met. Even in my younger days, whenever we went out, we would go to a heavy metal club, and even now, guys and girls in leather jackets and boots are the nicest people to me you'll ever meet.
Yeah. My husband's a metalhead, so
Yeah.
I can attest to that. Oh, that's so interesting, but you do tend to lean into, a lot of the really dark horror, like, some of the horror that you're into, I'm like, "Oh, oh my goodness." I'm glad that he's telling me about
I
it and that I don't have to
I
watch it
hadn't
myself.
had not picked up on that until you mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh, yeah."
But,
But
you seem to, like, get beauty and, you find things to latch onto within.
in those really dark ones, I think it's because I think we enjoy being scared, and then you watch some of those, and you're in a safe environment. I think real life has enough horror in it, so you can watch this and enjoy it. Or if you go to the cinema, you're in there with 200 other people. You get scared together, and then you all come out just a little bit closer with each other. Everyone's talking about it. You've in this room. Every now and again, you hear a scream or a jump. See the popcorn fly. You're afraid, but you also know you're safe. So you can come out into the light and think, I enjoyed that. That was a good experience. And it's also, you get that feeling, especially when the adrenaline is going. Afterwards, you feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, like, there's enough scary stuff in real life and, you know, at least with horror, you expect to be horrified, whereas when
Yeah.
real life hits you with horrors, it's always a surprise.
But it's the thing, there's a story, and I've never checked if it's true, because I like it too much, because Alfred Hitchcock was asked once, why do we like to be scared? And he answered, well, what's the first thing we do when we see a new baby? We lean over it and go, boo. Yeah. That story, it probably isn't true, but I've heard it, and I love it that much, and it makes sense to me. We use horror, and we explore the really uncomfortable things in life, like human nature, society. But then you come out into the light, and yeah, you feel good about life. You go on.
That story made me think, like, when we're born, we're, like, bald and wearing diapers, and when we get old, we're bald and wearing diapers. It's
Like,
like we
yeah,
don't really change that much throughout
mm,
life.
no, oh, it's a circle. It's a horrible circle.
Um, and you've talked a lot about books. What are some of your favorite horror movies?
I think my favorite, it would have to be The Exorcist. It's what I would go back to, because it is so strange and creepy. One of the scariest ones I've seen was, I think I remember about, was The Vanishing. I put that on, not really knowing that much about it, and when it got to the ending, he wakes up in the underground. He's got the lighter, and he screams, and I was okay. I am having trouble breathing here. It's really scared me. It really properly scared me. But then also things like what I said, the burning, that it just makes me. I think it's the idea of garden shears, because as the weapon. Because whenever I saw it, I kept thinking of my dad cutting the hedges. This is almost 30 years ago, and just makes me smile. But then I think something like Psycho. as well. Because I remember watching it, and I knew vaguely what it had. I knew there's this one was being killed in the show. I didn't realize it was the main star, and she was killed half an hour into it. And I was like, "What happens now?" And then whenever we get the reveal towards the end with Norman Bates' mother, I thought, "This is brilliant. I love this."
It's fun when they pull a switch like that, like in From Dusk Till Dawn, how it starts out as kind of
Oh,
a crime movie and then switches.
I know. A friend of mine put that on. He said, "Look, I'm not even going to tell you what it's. We'll just sit down. We're just going to watch it." And then I just like, "What is happening?" I saw, oh, George Clooney's playing a bank robber. Oh wait, no, there's vampires now. Okay.
I went into that
Um,
one cold too, and I was like, "This is great." It was so much fun. I like it when a film can surprise me because at this point, I've watched so many things that it's hard to be surprised because you've seen all the tropes before. And with you too, especially, I think because you read so many books as well, you get to notice the literary, like where things are going, and guessing things ahead of time.
that's I'd seen Misery first before I read the book, and it was another one I just had that really uncomfortable feeling. He's tied to the bed and this crazy person. But it was the hobbling scene. Whenever she put that 2x4 between his ankles and then the sledgehammer, it was one of those I wanted to look away, but I couldn't because they're not actually going to. And then whenever she hits him, even now, I've seen that film dozens of times. Every time, whenever that hammer hits, every time.
Yeah.
I love it. But funny, that was one because I read the book after, and in the book, she cuts his foot off with an axe and cauterizes it with blowtorch. I found the sledgehammer worse. I don't know
Yeah.
why. It's just it was awful.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Well, we spent a lot of time talking about other people's writing. I'd like to talk a little bit more about your own, like where people can find you and read your writing you can read some on
On
horrorfam.com.
yours, yeah.
Yeah. Mm, And
I'm on. Well, I put it up on Instagram. The links to it. I'm also on Blue Sky. Just Adam Page at Blue Sky. I think I still have a Threads account. I must actually check that because I know horror fans on it. You have to start using it again. But other than that, that's where I've put everything up on Blue Sky at the minute.
well, see, that's good for me to know because I'm new on Blue Sky and I didn't know you were
Oh,
on there.
I will look you up whenever we're done with this. But yes, because I went off X or Twitter a while ago because, well, yeah. But then, like I said, I was on Threads, but I just fell out of the use of it. But I think I do still have an active account. I'll have to check it again, and if I am to Adam Page 998 on Threads as well.
Yeah, is it Adam Page dot 998?
998, yes.
Yeah, so that's,
That's something I
Adam's
probably should have had that written down before I started.
so, Adam's handle on Instagram and probably Threads since they're
Yes,
connected
yes.
is adampage.998,
Yeah. And
and
Blue Sky is Adam Page at Blue Sky Social, yeah.
okay. So, as you continue to build up your horror writing portfolio, people can follow along on those accounts.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll
Yeah.
try and become a bit more active on social media.
And I've noticed that you've been getting lots of horror articles published, since you started out, and it's been great to follow along with that.
Well, when I'm free during the day, it's can sit down and write for a while, which is try and keep into a routine of it instead of I'll write for, do something today and then maybe not for another couple of days, but try and keep at it daily. I think that's what we all have to do.
Oh, yes. So I highly recommend that people read your articles. You're a very good writer, and you got some interesting thoughts on horror and a lot of things that people wouldn't normally see. Like you yeah, you did a whole thing on disturbing horror movies and
Well, I have some friends to thank for that. They're the ones who made me sit down and watch them. I don't think Martyrs. I don't think I would have sat and watched it myself if a friend of mine hadn't said, "Here, sit down, we'll watch this."
And was there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I've really enjoyed this. I guess we covered everything, but I was nervous starting it. But no, this has been great.
Well, that's good. Is there anything coming out, horror-wise that you're looking forward to or, uh
Sinners has just come out in the cinema here, and I want to go and see it. But because everyone's been raving about it, so that's the only thing at the minute. That unfortunately, at the minute, my things on my list will be Lilo and Stitch, and things like this. At the minute,
Oh, that's something that I wanted to ask you. Have you introduced your children to horror yet?
my eldest daughter, yeah, she about a year and a half, 2 years ago, her school had a writing contest to write a poem, and she wrote one about the monsters. And I was reading this. So she had been going through all my old Stephen King books just to get ideas, and she had written a poem bit like that, and one little certificate. So she wants to read a couple of them. So I'm trying to introduce her, not throw her in at the deep end. 'Cause a while ago, I found out she started reading it, and I thought, No, no, maybe just start with something. Maybe the short stories, and maybe not just start with that one." But she's 11, so I think she should be able to. She could handle it okay.
Yeah.
My 7-year-old, I'll not give her misery yet or anything. I'll wait until she's
I was thinking that maybe she could start with the same book that you did with Carrie. That's a good one for
yeah, I asked
girls
her
around
about
that
it.
age.
She said it sounded boring. So I thought maybe I just didn't describe it very well. So I'll definitely have to get her introduced to a few more films.
If you hear meowing, I'm sorry, that's our cat. She's upset that she's locked out of the room right now.
My dog out there sniffling, trying to get in here. So.
All right. Well, thank you for answering that. Yeah, whenever I have someone who's a parent on, like what horror movies or horror books have you introduced your children to? It's
Yes. Start them slow, not throwing in the deep end.
yeah, that goes for adults too, because like
I
people
think
who
I think that's a fair
yeah
point.
yeah people who aren't used to it, you gotta ease them in.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Well, I know it's late where you are. Thank you again for being on,
Not a
and
problem, I really enjoyed myself, thank you.
and for everyone watching or listening, this has been Adam Page, and you can find him at Adam.988 on Instagram and Threads, and Adam Page. Just search his name on Blue Sky and keep up with his writing. He's doing a lot of neat stuff that's horror related, and I think you'll enjoy reading his articles. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ryan. Thank you.